coach, I always love to quote one of my favorite poets, Emily Dickinson, when she said, "There is no frigate like a book to take us lands away." That not only inspires us to read books, to go to different worlds and have different experiences, but as a Ready writer, that is your job, to take this judge someplace that we didn't anticipate that you would go.
So in 2025, the Ready Writing Contest unveiled a new rubric. And for those who have been in this contest before, the rubric is worded a little bit differently, but the nature of this contest is still the same. It's still a contest that's looking for students who are perceptive thinkers, who have something interesting to say about what it means to be a human, to live in the world we live in, and who can exhibit that through experiences, through specific examples, through a good argumentative structure. The nature of this contest has and will likely always be an expository essay meant to craft and reward thinking students. It's not necessarily the best writer. Best thinkers are going to be out best writers if the best writer isn't that interesting. So really what this contest is looking for is, at a good Ready Writing level, somebody who can think deeply. They can give us nuance. They can draw conclusions, and they can actually support an argument in a logical, very well-framed structure.
And good Ready writing does not include editorial perspectives. This is not an opportunity to take a personal position or AKA a rant. As judges, we don't want to be talked at, yelled at. We're consuming this essay from the perspective of an original perspective, your understanding, your lens through which the world that you're looking, that we can also see your perspective. It's not a personal narrative essay. It's not a literary analysis essay. However, you will use rhetorical strategies, skills in that writing process. So as Cameron has already alluded to, good thinkers internally become good writers as they're expressing their ideas and their originalities.
What is going to make a successful Ready writer is somebody who understands that what you're doing in this contest isn't exactly what you're doing in the classroom. It's going to take skills from argumentative essays. It's going to take skills from rhetorical analyses, but it is not itself a rhetorical analysis. Your personal experiences certainly count for something. We all have experiences that shape how we view the world, but you have to apply them in a way that supports an argument robustly and logically. And so we're not looking for somebody who can give us an analysis of the prompt. We want to see how you pivot from the prompt. What did you take from it? What insights do you have that are unique to your mind and your worldview? And that's really what the nature of this contest is. It's not supposed to be just an analysis. It's not an editorial. And so it's not a journalism event. And so in that way, it's a really unique event that really rewards high-level thinkers in a way that really no other UIL event does. And it really takes the best of what you learn in the English classroom and then applies it to kind of a writing that you're going to do for the rest of your life.
In the personal reflection, sometimes students want to include anecdotes, which anecdotal information is important, especially if you're trying to set up context for an example or philosophy or a text that we're unfamiliar with. However, most students embed analytical anecdote type scenarios in their introductory paragraphs, and then that springboard doesn't develop in the body of the essay. So if you want to utilize personal examples, try to avoid anecdotal examples because they seem to be less effective in the essays. We're influenced by the rubric itself. It's something that we must internalize, we understand, and we use in the application process. However, we also are under time constraints, where as judges we have a set of essays that we have to read in a limited amount of time. And in that process, we're reading effectively and we're reading diligently, but we're also reading holistically for an idea or a concept, the originality, the thought, the reflection that the student puts into the essay. The process itself individually is as each judge reads an essay, he or she puts a plus or minus to identify if we feel like the essay meets the criteria holistically from the rubric. If it does not meet, then it gets a minus. There are moments where we're unsure and we think that this essay has potentiality. And for that reason, we'll mark a plus/minus and put that essay in what I call no man's land. We're not exactly sure what to do with it, but it comes back in that evaluative process at the end.
Yeah, and I think this is a good time to note that your judges are going to have different experiences that they bring to the table. I, for example, have a background in AI and tech, and I competed in this event at the state level for multiple years, and I've judged from district all the way to state for multiple years. Shauna is actually has been a former coach. She's been in the classroom. So we have very different worlds that we're coming from. But we do, as judges, try to align on what matters the most in this contest. And that is the weighted section on the rubric of perceptive ideas, of originality, of creativity. And so regardless of where we're coming into this contest as judging, we do take a moment to align on what we want to see. And a corollary of this, though, given the minimized time that we have to actually judge, is that the biggest ideas are going to stand out the most. Very seldom do papers get actual second reads. When we sit down and we evaluate our plus piles and our minus piles and the no man's land, there typically is going to be one or two papers that stick out to us. Typically, the top three at any level will do that. But when we're trying to make those hard distinctions between where the rest of these fall, we really have to go back and very quickly review them. We can't reread them. And so what sticks with us are the biggest examples from originality, creativity, the big swings the students took to say something insightful and impactful. Like I said, ready writing should take us somewhere as readers. It should do something. It shouldn't just restate the prompt. And so the papers that succeed in that area are going to be much easier for judges to remember. It's also worth noting that we judge 12, sometimes more papers in a meet, and they're all on the same two topics. And so students who differentiate themselves with concepts are going to succeed more frequently than those who don't. And that's why that section is weighted higher on the rubric. What that means, though, is that sometimes your niche rhetorical strategies, while effective strategies in a holistic evaluation, are not really the things that stick with us when we come back. A cute metaphor, unless incredibly effective, isn't going to make that big difference. What's going to stick with us as judges is the holistic logic, the actual framework you're coming with, the interesting things you have to say as a student. And we might remember, that was a cute title. It played in effectively here.
It was clever.
But we're really trying to reevaluate the meat of what the essay's doing. What's the journey it took us on? And those small rhetorical techniques don't constitute the entire journey. So good judges are going to, like I said, really align on what matters the most in this contest. They're going to ignore their backgrounds, and they're going to evaluate the essay on its own merits, which typically means that we're going to assume that students aren't lying to us. And unless we have good reason to think otherwise, we're probably not going to fact check you unless it sounds off. But that means it's incumbent upon your students to have a strong logical structure that makes sense of what they're saying. Good judges are not going to award papers just for the fact that they are more relevant to their background. I'm not going to let my philosophy background let me bias more highly toward philosophical essays that might not actually be successful. The same would go for English teachers. They ought not typically bias toward essays that are more rhetorically effective but meretricious in their actual content. We try to look at the holistic aspect of the essay. Again, what's the journey we're going on? Is it worth the time? And as judges, we want to make sure that we are as objective as possible. And when we are trying to distinguish essays in our actual ranking, we don't want to abstract too far. We don't want to say, we thought this essay had a better vibe than this other essay. We always, and at least in our experiences, tie it back to specific aspects of the rubric. What did essay A do effectively in their examples? Did they have a better variety of examples? Were they not applied as well as essay B's? Did essay B take a bigger swing? And while they might not have had a large enough variety relative to essay A, they might have had a more creative outlook. And so a good judge is going to tie everything back to an actual point on the rubric.
As English teachers, we tend to hyper-focus on grammar, well-defined paragraphs of organization, transitions. However, those are the components, again, that go back and support perception, originality.